Welcome to Mary Alice.
What did you do?
We are a Desperate Housewives recap podcast with me, Erin McGee.
And me, Jakub Tanzi. Two best friends breaking down each episode until we answer the ultimate question, Mary Alice, what did you do?
Unless, of course, we have finished season 1, in which case, insert new mystery here.
Yes, there's a lot to unpack on Wisteria Lane.
Content warnings can be found in the episode description.
So get comfortable and let's get into this week's episode.
Welcome back. The worst thing about that was the eye contact.
So we're actually recording this intro after having just recorded the recap right now, and me and Erin are so in sync for this whole recording. So
it's unbelievable. We are the diversity of the Desperate Housewives podcast fandom because we are twins. That's coming back later.
Yeah, keep listening. We swear it all makes sense.
Everything will be tied together in a beautiful little ribbon, just like one of Mary Alice's voiceovers.
Oh, incredible.
I'm so excited for people to listen to what we have to say about this episode because it has one of my favourite storylines of the first season, which is the dynamic between Bree and Zach. We get a lot out of both of them in this episode.
Yeah, there's so much depth to what we learn about, I think, well, Zach definitely, but Bree, I mean, I'm the most interested in.
Yeah, she's definitely the most interesting. And she's named after a cheese.
And I think that...
That one took you a minute, didn't it? That one soured you for a second.
I'm on a delay. We're out of sync. We gotta end the recording now. So, okay, let's get into the episode.
Yeah.
Here we go.
We've got season 1, episode 5. Come in, stranger.
So we open with a Mary Alice voiceover, as usual, introducing us to a new neighbour. A new neighbour to us, not new to the lane. Her name is Alberta Frame, because there are no common names on the lane, apparently. Alberta is going out of town and looking for someone to look after her cat, Mr. Whiskers, and after trying many neighbours, she's left with no choice but to ask Susan. Alberta likes Susan, but as Mary Alice says, and as we've seen on several occasions, bad luck seems to follow Susan. So cue a montage of unseen Susan slapstick moments. Try saying that 3 times fast.
Classic Susan slapstick moments. Classic Susan slapstick moments. Classic Susan
That was almost great, but it was unseen Susan slapstick moments.
Oh, and also almost great is how most people describe me. So we're right on schedule.
Excellent. Alberta looks terrified as she drives away in her taxi, waving to her cat.
And Susan makes the cat wave, and the cat looks miserable. It's a really cute cat, though.
It's so cute. And then that night, Susan and Julie enter Mrs. Fromm's house to find that it has been broken into. They see a screwdriver they don't recognize on the counter and start frantically looking for the cat. And I love this shot because it holds and doesn't move as they start searching, and they leave the room, they leave the frame of the shot as they're away looking in other parts of the house. We're just holding on this shot of this empty kitchen until a door opens and a man comes out of, I guess, a pantry or a cupboard that he was hiding in and sneaks out. And we do not see his face.
No, but we see his arm. And I knew straight away by the arm because we've spoken about this before. So Jakub and I have spoken a lot about what we are attracted to specifically in men. And I always say the eyes, and you don't care about eyes at all. But my secondary quality, I would say, is arms. And I genuinely sat there going, I know that arm.
Incredible. I was going to say that, I mean, arms aside, it's hard for me to imagine not immediately guessing because it seems so obvious watching back now, but then probably 15-year-old me was like, oh.
I think the real clue is the cat, Mr. Whiskers, follows the assailant out, and the assailant lovingly puts the cat back. And I think that's a hint that this is not an evil robber and nothing looks taken. Things don't look destroyed in any way. It really does look like somebody's just been looking for something.
Yes. So then we get our classic theme song before we go into our first main scene.
We are having a neighborhood watch meeting at Lynette's. There's like plastic chairs out. People are sprawled on the sofa. We meet Ida Greenberg for the first time.
Yes, I was going to say, this is the first time we meet her, right?
Yes, and I love her. She is saying that this is not the first time a crime has been committed on the street because somebody is always creeping on her in the shower.
Yeah, and to be clear, Ida Greenberg is a very elderly woman.
Yes. And why is that relevant?
This feels like a trap.
Yes. Then we meet Bob Fisk, the conspiracy theorist. I have a conspiracy theory of my own here.
Oh my God, are we going to say the same thing?
Okay. Do we think he's the taxidermist? Yes! You can't see, but we're waving our hands frantically in the air. You would think that our winning team has just scored a touchdown or something.
It feels like it has. I'm crying. So for people who have no idea what we're talking about, I think in episode 2,
yes,
when Susan is at Mike's for dinner with Edie and Julie, the scene opens with they're catching Mike up about some of the neighbors, and they just mention in passing someone on the street who is a taxidermist, and we want to know more. And I feel like, although it's never confirmed,
it's Bob Fisk.
In our headcanon, it's Bob Fisk.
Bob Fisk, the taxidermist.
Yes. So, I mean, I don't think we ever see Bob Fisk again after this scene.
I had to look it up specifically so that I knew that my theory was somewhat plausible.
But going forward, just know that we will likely bring him up at times in the future.
Bob Fisk, potential love interest, the one that got away. So, yes, basically there's a bunch of neighbours talking about things that aren't really crimes. And it's a nice way of making the street feel bigger and opening up the world a bit beyond the kind of main characters that we know and love. Then we cut to Officer Thompson offering safety tips for the lane. They've taken this very seriously. And Lynette is active with a little clipboard and the hosting. And I think it's a really nice parallel, kind of what we were saying last episode. Lynette and Bree are so much more similar than you would once initially think. And Lynette has a purpose and it's businesslike, and this is where she's kind of thriving. Susan waves at Mike and he blows her off because she didn't come to the cinema. And Susan hands over a screwdriver that was left at Mrs. Fromm's house to Officer Thompson. Mike is visibly jealous. Susan looks gorgeous, by the way. I think this is the most beautiful Susan's ever looked. I think it's the orange jumper. It's working wonders for her. And my only other note on the scene is Officer Thompson is a good-looking fella. What do you think?
I would agree that he is very much a good-looking fella. Something I wanted to say was that when Susan gives the screwdriver to Officer Thompson, he obviously is attracted to Susan and is being a bit flirty. So he's all shocked. Oh, why haven't you handed this in already? This is important evidence. And Susan essentially says that the policeman that she tried to give the screwdriver to basically laughed her out the station.
Yes.
Were not interested, did not think it was significant. So I think that the cop who turned down Susan's request to analyze the screwdriver was Officer Huber.
Yes.
We are so in sync.
We're like taps because we are so in sync today. Unbelievable work we are doing.
The energy is popping. I don't know why I said that.
It was until you said it was popping.
Sorry, guys.
I hate it.
Later that night, we see the main girlies stay behind the meeting to help Lynette clean up. Gabrielle is asking Susan about Mike, who she admits she's been giving mixed signals to. So Gabrielle moves on to Officer Thompson and his obvious flirting with Susan. Susan asks her if she really thought he was flirting, to which Gabby says, "Honey, trust me, when they're not staring at me, I notice." And maybe the cop would have been looking at Gabby if she wasn't wearing such a fashion out, looking like a tacky vase.
Oh,
I said it.
Oh.
It was just this really ugly, intricate pattern of red on white, and she had her shoulder out, but it was just like a weird design. I didn't like it at all.
It was a fashion out.
Yeah.
So we also cut to the twins, the evil twins, and they're pillow fighting. Bree is helping Lynette clear everything away as well. They are misbehaving and not going to bed, and Bree looks openly disgusted at them. It's such a funny shot. She said that she would have hosted the neighborhood watch event herself, but there's so much camping equipment out for the children. I know for a fact there was maybe a singular sleeping bag out, and Bree went, "I simply cannot have people see that we're living like this."
Lynette essentially asks Bree for a favor. She wants Bree to recommend her kids to Barcliff Academy, where Bree's kids went to. And I guess it's just kind of implied that the twins did get kicked out of the school from the previous week, because we don't see that, but Lynette and Tom are desperate this episode trying to find somewhere to send the kids for an education. So I'm just like, I didn't put two and two together until later in the episode, but...
Oh, yeah. I didn't even clock that. That completely went over my head. I thought they were just kind of sick of being taken into the school. They'd already tried separating them, and they were kind of doing the thing of maybe they need a kind of stricter hand.
Maybe. I guess it just felt through this episode like they were kind of desperate for some alternate option. Bree is resistant because she's worried about her reputation at Barcliff and wants to get her grandchildren in there one day, so she doesn't want to lie about Lynette's kids being well behaved. And Lynette couldn't care less about Bree's concerns in this situation.
I really love their friendship. The way that Bree says, so you want me to lie? Yeah, I thought that was understood. Bree has no qualms about saying, well, your children are awfully behaved. And Lynette has no qualms about saying, yes, but I don't care, please.
I also love the detail of, in this conversation, Bree is cleaning up and she's holding a slice of pizza she found between the couch cushions, which I think is implied was just left there by one of the twins.
Yes. That, who knows how long it's been there, and she's revolted by it. She's handing it over like it's a dirty pair of pants.
Yes. And at the end of the scene, the girls hear shouting and look outside to see it's coming from a fight between Paul and Zach across the street.
We hear that they are fighting again, second time this week. Susan says they used to be such a happy family. Bree, who is clearly projecting and talking about herself here, I think, says just because you didn't hear them fighting doesn't mean they were happy. A little touch of this scene that I really enjoyed. Susan and Gabby were helping clean up together. Susan has all of the trash bags, because why would Gabby hold those trash bags?
She truly would not.
She would not.
So, speaking of Gabby, we're now going to cover all of the Gabrielle scenes of the episode.
I think this is my least favorite storyline of the episode.
Ooh, but it has a really great character, so I really enjoy them.
I really like her as a character. I think my problem with it is I find it really, really hard this episode to be on Gabby's side in any way.
So essentially, we're going to be introduced to Carlos's mother. And something I find interesting is that even though it's so hard to take Gabby's side here, because she's so clearly in the wrong in this whole episode, Mama Solis just gives such villain energy despite that, just her vibe.
Yes, and I think there is a stereotype that they're playing off of quite well of, oh no, nobody gets along with their mother-in-law type of thing.
So the next morning, Carlos's mother turns up unannounced with her bags, clearly not just stopping by for a quick visit. Gabby, who is home, is surprised and the vibes are icy. It's very clear these two women do not like each other immediately. So Mama Solis demands a hug from Gabby.
Ugh.
And when they do, she says my quote of the week, which is, family should always hug. And then she leans in close and whispers, regardless of how they feel about each other.
It is villain energy.
It's such villain energy, and I'm so here for it.
I love that the second she steps out of the taxi and she's wearing those short heels, Gabby already knows who it is.
Yeah. I would like to say that I am clocking Mama Solis as the monster of the week.
She is definitely the monster of the week. I completely agree with you. I have noticed whenever the monster of the week is not Martha Hooper, it's because Martha Hooper is not in the episode.
Well, Martha Hooper's like the big bad.
Yes.
We need our monster of the week that's just like...
We need Julie to get stronger and stronger each episode to build up to the final battle.
That finale is going to be real exciting, you guys.
There's some weird directorial choices in this episode, and that's what I want to get to in the next scene.
Ooh.
So Gabby is off to do her yoga in the conservatory area nearby. Juanita is knitting. Juanita is Mama Solis's name. I don't know if that's revealed in this episode or whether...
It is.
Oh, good. Okay. Spoiler. So we find out, because Carlos comes to talk to his mother, that he asked her to come here. And they have a conversation, which I'm going to say 100% would have taken place in Spanish, but I'm ignoring it. And Gabby in the background is awkwardly stretching in the most un-yoga-like way that I've ever seen. They've clearly said to Eva Longoria, just like stretch a little bit in the background. Why keep her in the shot? It's upsetting. Carlos seems genuinely quite vulnerable here to his mum, and he begins to cry, to which his mother slaps him across the face.
And Gabby, who is a few meters away just outside the big window, takes no notice of any of this.
Because she's doing her yoga.
Yeah, she's in the zone.
I thought this was an insight of what Carlos was used to when being vulnerable as a child. Kind of expected not to show tears, expected to be strong, kind of toxic masculine vibes there. And Gabby and Carlos' relationship issues, well, one of them primarily is communication about emotions. And I just thought this was an interesting insight, not an excuse for Carlos, but definitely a moment where we can understand how deep-rooted these issues are for him.
I definitely did clock the communication thing because, like, he basically says that Gabrielle's not happy. He's given her everything she's ever wanted. And it's like, okay, why haven't you asked your wife why she's not happy? Because your mother, who doesn't like Gabby, is not going to be able to answer that.
Juanita is an unreliable narrator. Yeah, you're right. And I think he has a very old-fashioned idea of what the role of the man is and the role of the woman. And he's struggling to see past that, I think. He is convinced that by financially providing, that is enough. And that's his part to play, and her part to play is basically to love him unconditionally. And it's interesting how those are clashing.
Yeah, and we even hear in the very first episode when Gabby's with John the gardener, and Gabby admits that Carlos gave her everything she ever wanted. And when John asks, well, why she's not happy, she says, turns out she wanted all the wrong things.
Yes.
Maybe Carlos would know that if he talked to her. But also it's interesting because, you know, as you mentioned, he's like been brought up not to cry and be weak and stuff. But as we know from the pilot, he cries after closing every single business deal.
Yes. And I wonder if because he's not getting that emotional release at home, he has projected that onto his work life. And that's seen as he somehow, it's his outlet for his tears in some way, because it's seen as somewhat socially acceptable that whenever he closes a huge deal that he tears up. Whereas if he's tearing up because his wife is cheating on him, he's been taught that that is unacceptable.
I love this analysis.
John the child gardener texts Gabby essentially saying, forget about your boyfriend and meet me at the motel room. So Gabby makes an excuse to her mother-in-law that she's going to the stores. Juanita wants to go to the store. She wants to make tamales for Carlos. Gabby says she's going to a lingerie store. Juanita says she needs a new bra. It's just very clear that Gabby is not going to be able to get rid of Juanita.
Yes. And I would also like to clock a fashion in at this time. Kind of. It's for an accessory. But basically, when Gabby gets a text from John asking her to meet him at the motel, it is a cherry red flip phone.
It sure is.
And it is perfect for Gabby. I don't see her with any other phone. The phone has to match the outfit. She does wear a lot of red. And I just thought I would have loved that phone when I was younger.
Did you ever have a colourful phone? Because I had a bright pink Motorola V3 Razr and I still think about it.
I wanted the blue Motorola Razr so bad, and I was just denied that by my parents. And if you're listening, Dad, rude. Later, we then see Gabby and Mama Solis, Juanita, as we learn in this scene her name is, browsing at the lingerie store.
Who in their right mind? Who in their right mind is going lingerie shopping with her mother-in-law?
I mean, I've only ever been lingerie shopping with you.
I was literally about to bring that up.
Well, there's a memory that just got unlocked in my head.
I think it is interesting that I, in high school, felt comfortable taking you, who was not out of the closet, around underwear shopping with me. What did she know? Okay, I've officially got the giggles. Let's go.
So she points out that Gabby keeps looking at her watch, asking if she has someplace to be, and Gabby is getting less and less patient with her, starting to snap at her a little bit. And then Mama Solis brings up having kids. And yeah, clearly this has been a tension for some time between them. This is definitely the straw that breaks the camel's back, because Gabby has no interest in this conversation. She has no interest in having kids. And it really causes a bit of a scene in the store, because Gabby fully yells at her about how fulfilled her life is without kids. And then Juanita apologizes to a shopper nearby for her daughter-in-law's outburst, saying, "Excuse my daughter-in-law, she's very fulfilled."
It's very funny. But this is the moment where I do think it's a little bit of redemption for Gabby. I think it's very 2004 that the mother-in-law is putting pressure on the women to have kids. I also think we know where Gabby ends up, and I do wish that we had a housewife who was more childless by choice and stuck to the guns of that. I think Edie would have been a fantastic example of a woman being childless by choice.
If they had done that.
If they had done that, yes.
Okay, I see your point.
I dislike on television when a woman says, you know, I'm not one of those women who has a hole in her heart that can only be fulfilled by a baby. I like my life a lot. It's very fulfilling, because I love that line and I love the honesty of that line. But what happens more often than not is that woman then ends up having children anyway. And that creams my corn, Jakub. It creams my corn. I just have a bee in my butt about that. And the whole children give your life a purpose. Not sure I agree. You can have plenty of purpose without children.
I fully agree. I have lots of friends who are not interested in having kids.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, it was the 2000s.
It was a different time, but not that different.
Nope.
I think that's the slogan of our take on this entire television show. It was a different time, but not that different.
Maybe that should just be our caption on Instagram.
That's the episode title.
Later, or the next day, we're not sure, another scene, Juanita is fully immersed by a telenovela she's watching. It's just like me truly watching Desperate Housewives for the first time. And Gabby uses the opportunity to speak to John, who is repairing something in their garage, tool shed, I don't know, something like that. Gabby says they have a minute because Juanita is distracted by her Mexican soap opera. And then she describes what's happening on the soap opera by saying, the rebel's daughter is being seduced by the escaped desperado. Little shout out to the listeners.
I did not clock that at all.
The way I paused.
So basically, what we've realized is my mum knew.
She's really the mega fan here. She knows every line that's coming. She's 10 steps ahead of us.
My mother is always 10 steps ahead. That's so true. Love you, Mom.
Anyway, that is truly not important to the scene.
Excuse you, it definitely is. And John says that he waited 3 hours for her and saved up a month's worth of lunch money, which is an awful detail. It really draws the attention back to the fact that he's a child. And John says, I'm starting to think that maybe I should be with someone my own age. And I stood up in my chair and gave him a round of applause because, yes, John, you absolutely should.
However, Gabby then goes into full manipulation mode and is giving way too much hope for their relationship, which I say with quotation marks, and basically tells him to meet her at the entrance to the mall the next day. And it's truly awful because John definitely has real feelings for her, and Gabby is playing so hard on that, so she can't even defend herself by saying that she didn't realize that it meant more to John or whatever. She's fully using that to her advantage here.
Yes, I think it's interesting that this has come after the Rose episode, because I think that's the moment she realized that John was falling in love with her. I think Mary Alice even clocks it. And this is her, it's very hard to like Gabby in this episode because this is her abusing that love as if she weren't abusing him enough already.
Yeah, see our episode 2 rant on John the Child Gardener.
Episode 2, woo! We cut to the second shopping trip for Juanita and Gabby. And Gabby's treating Juanita. She is commenting that she is happy to buy multiple clothing items for her. And when Juanita is in the changing room, Gabby decides to put a blouse in Juanita's shopping bag so that security alarms will go off. Gabby runs out of the store and Juanita is taken away by the shopkeeper. We then cut to Gabby and John at a Hampton hotel as security drags Mama away.
This scene has my number one fashion in for the episode, which is Gabby's whole outfit here. She's wearing this like pink sleeveless top that has this mini sort of, I don't know how else to describe it. It's like a Dracula's cape style collar, but mini. And then it's clasped together with this bedazzled brooch. And she's got her pink leathery mini skirt to match with it. It's beautiful. I'm obsessed.
It's very cute. It wasn't my fashion in. That's to come, but I did enjoy it.
It's quite unhinged when Juanita gets dragged away because she's very frustrated and she's yelling, and it really makes her look like a so-called crazy person as she's being dragged away.
I know I'm not the right person to comment on this, but I still want to address it about Gabby knowingly putting her mother, who is Mexican, and there's something there about Mexican people being treated more harshly by the law than people who are white, and Gabby purposely putting Mama Solis in that situation where, whilst Mama Solis speaks perfect English, we know Spanish is her first language, and I just think it's particularly cruel.
Yeah. I also wanted to say, Gabby meets John outside and fully kisses him out in the open with passersby. And I get that it's unlikely people she personally knows will be there, but she's making out with a child in the middle of the street.
Yes.
Why is no one reporting this?
Yes.
The final scene of Gabby and Mama Solis. We see Gabby on the phone to Carlos that evening explaining the situation with Juanita, who is now knitting in the living room. Juanita wants to talk to Gabby, saying that it's important.
I'm also laughing because in this scene, you can see that the staircase of Gabby and Carlos's home just has 3 giant canvases of Gabby's face.
Very on brand.
Just a detail I wanted the listeners at home to know about.
She tells Gabby about her ex-husband that used to beat her, that when they had Carlos, she had a reason to live again, and that when he came home one day and was drunk, he beat Carlos, and something inside of her snapped, and that she took care of it, or did what she needed to do to protect her son. And when Gabby asks what she did to him, Juanita says, "When you pray hard enough, God gives you the tools to your salvation." And as she says this, we get a close-up of her very sharp knitting needles working away with very intense sound effects of like the metal scraping together.
Loved
the
it.
music is ominous. It's incredible. Gabby is terrifying. She claims that she doesn't know why Juanita is telling her this, but Mama Solis just straight away fires back that, "Oh, I think you do."
It's good. It's really good. Also, a bit more of Carlos's lore. We find out that Carlos has no idea what really happened to his dad.
Yes. And also didn't have a strong father figure himself growing up.
Yes, also that she says before the incident where he physically beat Carlos, she says that he used to constantly come in drunk and shout at him. So it does really feel like Carlos comes from an abusive background.
Yeah, it all tracks. It all tracks.
It all tracks.
Yeah, this was definitely the scene where I felt Mama Solis gave the most villain energy. It felt like the villain in their evil chair, like giving their evil plans, kind of that vibe.
But what I find interesting is Mama Solis feels like a villain because we spent a lot of time with Gabby now. We're on her side. And actually, from Mama Solis's perspective, Gabby is the villain. And I think that's what's so interesting about the writing and what writing can do, because we are in Gabby's head.
Yes, that's what it is. That's exactly what it is. We've got that Gabby POV.
POV. Hate it. We didn't have any hate it last week. So
I know, it was sad. Yeah.
I missed
Yeah.
it.
Well, we hate that.
Woo.
So now we're going to move on to Lynette's plotline for this episode.
I loved Lynette's arc this episode. I'm a Lynette apologist, I think I've come to realize. I'm like, this woman can do no wrong until she does. So we have the interview at Barcliff Academy. Is it Bartcliff or Barcliff?
I think Barcliff.
Either way, it's posh. They are meeting the headmaster. Lynette is in her business attire. Tom's in the business attire. Tom spots that the headmaster has lots of pictures of boats around him and is trying to strike up a bit of a conversation. Headmaster's having none of it because Tom has all the charm of a wet fish. Lynette looks great. Just clocking that for context. It seems like Barcliff is very prestigious to get into. This was almost my quote of the week. I don't know if you know. Jakub looks confused. They say about the twins, well, we do strive for diversity here at Barcliff.
Yeah, they said that the twins' educational background is more common than they'd like.
Sure.
So they're essentially saying they'll take the kids on potentially as a diversity hire.
Wild behavior. So he says that he wants to meet the twins, which immediately terrifies Lynette, and rightly so. They are bricking it when they hear that the kids are going to be observed because now they have no control over how this is going to go.
And also from the boat chat, it becomes clear that Tom owns a yacht. And I'm like, girl, when are you going yachting? Go home and look after your family.
I thought it was a sailboat.
Well, a sailboat. He owns a boat.
I really don't know my boats. Do you think I need to?
Well, in any case, Tom has a vessel of some descript, a sea vessel.
Tom has a submarine.
So the day the twins are supposed to go to Barcliff for observation, Lynette wakes them up at the crack of dawn to put them through essentially a homemade boot camp, doing her best to exhaust the twins so they don't have the energy to misbehave at Barcliff. Cut to the twins being observed by Lynette and the head of Barcliff, and he asks Lynette if they're always so docile because they're basically half asleep drooling over a puzzle.
Yes.
To which Lynette says that, they're always shy at first and presents their quietness as intense concentration.
Porter loves his puzzles.
He sure does.
I love that. A weird observation from me. I feel like that's all I bring to the table. There is a direct correlation between exercise being used to help manage ADHD symptoms in children, which from the previous episode, I just thought was really interesting. I think it's used comedically here to show the twins to the point of exhaustion. But I just thought that was interesting and just wanted to clock it.
That is interesting. Again, if it was set in 2025, very different story.
Another thing. During the montage of all the twins boot camp, one of the things they do is digging up the yard. Lynette says they're digging up a pool, which I think is a slight parallel to Paul Young digging up the pool.
Ooh.
And later, Lynette having to cover it up and fill it back in.
Interesting. I guess that went over my head since it was kind of like a comedy little moment in passing, but I like the little observation.
As usual, you all can't prove that that's not it, so don't come for me.
Because they're always coming for you in the comments.
Yes, because we've not gone live with these podcasts yet.
As soon as it does, they're going to be flooding in, Erin.
Yeah, at the end of this episode, we're going to do a Q&A. Everyone's been asking us for it.
We're just being hounded day and night.
They say, Erin, what is your skincare routine? And finally, I'm coming on here to tell you. Sorry.
Love that.
Okay. So Tom and Lynette are talking about Barcliff, and that Barcliff are wanting a generous donation from them. They want $15,000.
Insane.
Now, Jakub, get close to this mic.
I'm ready.
Felicity Huffman famously paid exactly $15,000 for an exam proctor to change her daughter's answers on an SAT. And whilst we said we wouldn't get into the behind the scenes, it's too much of a coincidence not to point out the accidental manifestation here.
Do you think if there's any other crimes that are similar to what happens in Desperate Housewives that they should immediately look at the cast as suspects?
Yes.
They've been taking tips from the writers.
Yeah, Terry Hatcher has been caught with massive arson cases. It's too funny not to point out. So Tom mentions homeschooling, and I would murder him on the spot, frankly. And he even has the gall, the gumption, to talk to her about the sacrifices he has had to make for the family.
They talk about homeschooling. Lynette jokes, why don't we just put them back in me and cook them until they're civilized?
Yes.
Love that. But I will say it was a cute little scene in terms of like just the setting. They were just chilling on the couch. Tom was giving Lynette a little foot rub. I just feel like compared to all the other relationships, this is the only one where we see this kind of sort of daily affection.
Yes, I think something that horrifies me so much about Tom and Lynette's relationship, and the reason that I'm so nitpicky over it, is because it's kind of presented to us as the healthiest.
I certainly felt that way watching it when I was younger. They were, for me, like the couple to root for.
Yes, and you know, there's definitely some issues that they have to work through.
Oh, for sure. But you know, you got to give props when it's earned.
True.
So later we see Lynette come across a toy boat as she's cleaning with her boys fighting in the background, and it's implied that she gets the idea to sell Tom boat for the money they need for Barcliff. So that evening, Lynette talks Tom out of the homeschooling idea by suggesting that she should go back to work.
Yes.
Because she earned more, I know that's right, so that Tom can homeschool the kids. And he is suddenly in full agreement that homeschooling is off the table. He knows he can't be home with the kids all day because he'll go insane.
Yeah, he literally says, I can't be with the kids all day. I'd lose my mind. Duh. And Lynette says, rightly so. I've made sacrifices over the past 6 years. I gave up my career. If another sacrifice has to be made, I think it's your turn. And yes, this is why I love Lynette. I do feel like her and Brie are the only ones that don't get completely steamrolled by their romantic partners at this point.
You're not going to like me for this, but you've described yourself in this episode as the Lynette apologist, and I worry that I'm going to become a bit of a Tom apologist, at least for a while.
Get out of my house.
Because I guess I just feel nostalgia for how I felt about their relationship when I was younger. But again, as I mentioned earlier, we see their little affectionate scene earlier, which we don't see with the other relationships. And at the end of the day, he does compromise and sacrifices and sells his boat. This is good communication here. They actually talk to each other. And even though it can be a little bit bumpy, you know, they've reached a good conclusion to this. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. And I do agree with that. What I find so difficult is that Tom's default setting is always that Lynette has to yield. His default is never that he is the one to yield. And that drives me crazy. It's Lynette is going to homeschool the kids. Lynette is going to make the sacrifice. Lynette is going to give up her job. As much as they're painted as the healthier dynamic, that at his core suggests to me a lack of respect for Lynette and what Lynette wants. He can see how unhappy all of this is making her. She has started to have conversations with him about how she isn't happy. And yet he still suggested homeschooling the kids.
That's very fair. What I will say is that I do feel like Lynette is the housewife that's best equipped to deal with that.
Yes.
She can, as we've seen, she can handle herself. She can say no. And I think that's why their dynamic works. We don't know much about Tom's past or what their relationship was like when they were younger. But if this is always the way he's been, then Lynette's chosen to be with this man, for better or worse.
I think people this is getting real into relationships. This is my relationship analysis. I think sometimes when people are married a long time and they start to have kids, and I do think Tom and Lynette were really happy and the relationship was working when they were both working and before they had children. When they have kids, some people begin to feel, well, I'm stuck in this now. I've invested X amount of years, X amount of time. I have a child with this person. I just have to stay in it. And I think that is what is happening with Lynette and Tom. And I do think they love each other. And I do think Lynette thinks that Tom is her soulmate. She loves this fun, quirky guy, but she isn't getting to be the fun, quirky woman in this relationship anymore. So if anything, the reason she's unhappy is because what the relationship has done to her, not what it's done to Tom. This thing that we're talking about next is my favorite arc of the entire episode.
We learn so much in this Bree plot line.
I am fascinated by the Bree and Zach dynamic. I love it. I love everything that we learn about both of them, putting those two as mirrors against each other. It's so, so good. Can you please start talking about it?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can. So, Rex comes by Bree's place to take the kids somewhere, and we see them interact for the first time since Rex moved out. And Bree mentions the break-in at Mrs. Fromm's and asks Rex to stay over to make her feel safer. To which Rex talks about Bree's extensive gun collection, reminds her of the armory which she has, and that he'd expect her to protect him in that kind of situation. And then he says, so casually, that the marriage counselling might not work out and that she needs to get used to sleeping alone.
Yeah.
Like, boy, that's not just a casual comment, because that implies that you're thinking it's not working out. Anyway, that's for later. So this clearly stings for Bree, and then Rex tries to take one of the sandwiches that Bree is preparing for the kids.
The audacity.
Rude. As he says he hasn't had a decent meal for a while, to which Bree says the marriage counselling might not work out and that he needs to get used to bad cooking.
As she should.
Hell yeah.
This is another interesting scene where Rex and Bree feel a little bit nicer to each other here.
I think it's the distance.
They're making each other smile, which is something we definitely haven't seen before. Another thing I thought was interesting is the color of Rex's tie is still color coordinated with Bree's outfit.
Oh, I missed that completely, but that's very sweet.
I think that's a subtle sign that maybe they're a little bit more in sync than they might think. Next, we get to Bree coming in to la la la, is anyone home? And Zach is wiping the floor and the tone immediately shifts. We're back in the horror movie of The Young Family. Bree has a neighborhood watch cuff on, which is so good. And she is ready to take Paul on their neighborhood watch date of the area. Paul is out of town again. And Zach is manically scrubbing the floor, saying, my mum liked things clean. And Bree remarks how clean it is. Not regular clean, Monica clean. Bree remarks that there's a certain spot where the varnish doesn't look quite right, and Zach says that he's trying to fix the spot that Mary Alice died in. This is where Bree then decides to invite Zach for dinner, and it's really sweet. And it's continuing my theory that Bree is acting as a placeholder for Zach of Mary Alice.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen in previous episodes, Bree worry about Zach, and it's in this episode that she really takes pity for him and kind of actions that.
And again, we've kind of had it alluded to us already that Mary Alice is the most like Bree out of the housewives.
Then we see Zach at Bree's place having dessert after their dinner. They're having plum pudding.
Plum pudding.
Breelicious. So then, sorry.
You can't say something like that and then just expect me to be able to continue.
Sorry about it.
Love of fun.
So then Bree says she likes to try new recipes before the holidays so that she can fix it if the recipe itself got it wrong.
Before we get into where this scene goes, I just think it's interesting to note that Zach is grateful for the plum pudding and also grateful that he has somebody to talk to. And Zach and Bree are both giving each other what they want. So Bree is wanting from her children gratitude and respect for her cooking. And Zach is getting the emotional intimacy from Bree that he is missing since his mother died.
My jaw has dropped. Like, I definitely saw it from Zach's perspective of getting what he needed from Bree, but I never thought about it the other way around.
Even the first line, Zach saying, I've never had plum pudding before. Like, he's dripping in appreciation for her. Oh, it hurts. It really, it was difficult to watch, but I loved it.
Love. Oh my God. And Zach is sad because Mary Alice loved Christmas, and Bree confides in Zach the story of how her mother was hit by a car and died around Christmas time when she was a child. And This is a very interesting detail, which will be relevant in a later episode.
Yes.
So I'm excited to come back to this in a few weeks. Bree then continues to say that she was too young to go to the hospital with everyone at the time, but she hosed down her mother's blood on the street, which apparently made her feel better when it was clean. Did someone say cleaning obsession origin story?
Yes. Once it was clean, I felt so much better. I've never told anybody that story before, which again is interesting. It means she hasn't told Rex this, she hasn't told her children this, and hasn't told the other women on the street, which I think makes sense because we've kind of alluded to the fact that Bree is the most closed off and perhaps doesn't see these women as her best friends yet. Zach decided to share a secret too, which was, I know why my mum killed herself. It was something I did, something bad.
I got chills.
I got chills too. And then Zach starts to have, I think, a really well-acted anxiety attack.
Yeah, he freaks out.
And he runs off. But again, this might have been a thing that I picked up because of the subtitles, but he says, no, I don't want you to get involved in this.
To which I say, did we mess up with the name of this podcast? Because Zach Young, what did you do?
Again, what this show does so well and what this first mystery does so well for me is that you have two perspectives here. Has Zach done something? Or is Zach having the very normal reaction of a child to blame himself for what his mum has done? We don't know yet. Can I also clock one of my favourite lines? It was nearly my quote of the week.
Oh.
Bree is telling a heartbreaking story about her mother's death and says, everybody in my family sings off key, except for me.
Yes, I remember that. Except for me, of course.
I have to tell a story about my friend Hannah. She's going to kill me. I'm going to put her on blast, but I love this.
Hi, Hannah.
Hi, Hannah. I was at Swiftageddon with Hannah. And you know when everyone's getting a bit drunk and rowdy and we were singing and this man next to us kind of started to give us a bit of a dirty look. And I turned to him, just kind of trying to be the peacemaker. I was like, I'm so sorry if we're being annoying and like singing off key near you. And he yielded and kind of smiled and whatever. Hannah immediately goes, I wasn't off key. So I got an extra kick out of that line from Bree.
Fantastic. We love real life parallels.
Yes. So after Zach gave a really intimate secret and Bree shared one back that she's never told anyone before, she immediately blabs to the other women exactly what happened. I love the weird tasks that they give these actresses to do in the background because Gabby and Susan are changing light bulbs in the lane while this scene is taking place.
I mean, I've never lived in a suburban lane, but there we go. The things you learn.
Things you learn. Gabby says to Bree, you're a woman. Manipulate him. That's what we do. Which is an interesting callback to her behavior earlier, I think.
Yeah.
Bree invites Zach to dinner again for a Christmas kind of themed dinner. The bit that creeps me out is Gabby says, how did you used to manipulate Rex? We already have had a slight reference to Rex liking alcohol and it making him very truthful. And Bree is speaking to Zach about eggnog, which we know has alcohol in it.
Oh, that is not what I thought it was just like the food thing again, because he liked it last time and we saw Rex earlier with the sandwiches talking about how he hasn't had a decent meal in a while.
No, she's
missed that completely.
She's very specifically talking about giving a child alcohol.
Bad Bree.
In an attempt to loosen him up and make him tell the truth. Bad Bree.
Yeah. So then Bree is preparing this off-season holiday dinner when Rex calls randomly to invite her to dinner. He's just in a good mood and is being random. He's so quirky.
When your ex tries to get you back because he's bored.
And I mean, we know where Bree's priorities are going to be here. She's immediately out the door off to meet Rex and bumps into Zach and tells him that unfortunately she has to cancel. And Zach is very clearly upset by this. So then later that night, we see Zach break in to Bree's home.
With an axe.
With an axe.
Which I think is the equivalent of bringing a knife to a gunfight, right? I mean, they're the opposite, a gun to a knife fight, I guess.
Wild. So then we see Bree and Rex come home from their dinner, having gotten a call from the police to find that their home is fully decked out in Christmas decorations, with 3 stockings on the mantle labeled Zach, Paul, and Mary Alice, which is kind of chilling.
It is. It's also a beautiful piece of performance art.
Sure.
Zach's made a statement. This is Christmas. Again, it's the parallel for me that, you know, this is the... Bree is the surrogate mother for him in this moment. And I'll give it to you. It's creepy, but it's also really, really, really sad.
It's so sad because Zach is so clearly going through so much and is in a very poor mental state. We don't know what Paul is medicating Zach with.
Yes.
The policeman also mentions in passing that Zach chopped down one of their trees to use as the Christmas tree, which is why he had the axe.
Which is the only thing that Rex seems mad about. Fine.
But Bree demands that the police uncuff Zach because she's still feeling very sorry for him. And then Paul comes in and is clearly very angry with Zach.
It breaks my heart when Paul shows up and Zach instinctively holds Bree's hand.
Oh.
All we know about Paul and Zach at this point is that it's extremely toxic. He's not allowed to talk about his mother. He's being medicated. They're screaming at each other. Paul has emotionally closed off. And there is an implication in this scene that he is afraid of his dad for whatever reason.
But maybe it should be the other way around.
Foreshadowing.
Do you want to finish off this plot line?
Sure do. Bree shows up to check on Zach. And she hears Paul and Zach arguing. It sounds like a crash or a thud, and it's unclear if somebody has been hit. Zach opens the door to talk to Bree, and he seems fine. But you're kind of sat there as a viewer, I think, going, are we going to get a reveal that he is injured or something? But when he closes the door, we see that he has punched Paul to the ground, and Paul has a bleeding lip. It gave me pause.
Yeah, that's an intense scene because everything we've thought about that dynamic just it almost flips on its head suddenly.
Yes, we have been trained as viewers to see Paul as the threat in that house. And this episode goes, but what if Zach is the threat in that house?
And as we've learned, Zach has potentially done something very bad, which is why Mary Alice killed herself, potentially. And so, yeah, the threat levels are building and building. Maybe suspicious Paul Young isn't suspicious. Maybe suspicious Zach Young is suspicious. Final girlie on the lane, Susan Meyer. Susan is watering her plants when Officer Thompson, remember him? That feels like a lifetime ago now. When he comes by to update on the screwdriver that she gave him, but more importantly, to ask Susan out on a date. She turns him down initially because she says she sort of has a boyfriend, to which I say, Susan, you haven't been on a single date with Mike.
You have never been to the cinema. And she kind of is talking about the fact that she's emotionally unavailable. And he clocks in this call on the radio where he says, oh, you know, I've got to help a hostage situation. I guess now that you've turned me down, the hostages have been compromised, and using a bit of emotional blackmail. But it's kind of sweet because Susan is seeing through it.
Yeah, I had mixed feelings about this because it was kind of cute, but also she just told you she's not really looking for anything, and then you immediately continued to push for a date.
Yes, why would you want to date someone who you have to convince to date?
Well, maybe he's not looking for just a date here. Maybe it's more of a casual thing he's after.
I genuinely, that didn't occur to me at all. We find out that the actual call on the radio was just a loud TV and not, in fact, a hostage situation.
Yeah. And Susan, in her eternally poor judgment, relents to the cop, and he says he'll call her to arrange something before he drives away.
Susan, in the following scenes, annoys me greatly. So I apologize if in advance I just sound disgusted. Susan approaches Mike and tries to get a rise out of him by basically going, well, you know, the cop asked me out and I said yes. What are your thoughts on that? Susan is acting like she has not blown this man off multiple times for episodes and episodes. Mike would have, I think, in this scene, cried if the cop was taking Susan to the movies.
And so would have I.
They have the classic communication issue where Susan goes to storm off and Mike says, Susan, wait. I'm sorry. It's just that my life is really complicated right now. We also then, the shot shifts and we see Mike has a screwdriver missing. Dun, dun, dun.
Susan mentions actually in this scene that the cop is going to analyze the screwdriver, and Mike definitely takes interest in that.
Yes, as he should, because I clocked from the first 30 seconds of this episode that was Mike's arm.
Hell yeah. Later we see Susan confide in Lynette about Mike not seeming that interested anymore. And she admits that she's very quick to get attached to men and starts comparing Mike to Carl. And here's Jakub's unsolicited dating advice of the episode, which is don't compare people to your ex. That is not going to lead to anything good.
Yes, truly, comparison is the thief of joy.
Truly. So she asks Lynette what Mike might have meant by saying his life is complicated. And then we cut to suspicious Mike being suspicious.
We do. Susan reveals in that scene that she married Carl after only a few months.
That's insane.
One of my favorite parts of this episode is Susan and Lynette's interaction here, where Susan says, I'm a mess. And Lynette says, but to be fair, that's part of your charm.
And you know what? It's funny, but also it's so true.
It's definitely part of the...
It's one of those things where it's like, if you want to date Susan, you do have to like that aspect of her, because it's not going anywhere.
We cut to suspicious man is suspicious with suspicious Mike in suspicious park. I told Jakub at the start of this episode that my notes were basically vibes instead of plot summaries. So they are watching children play football in the park. Is it John the Child Gardener? Who knows? This suspicious man has my favourite accent, which is the kind of like, oh yeah, old money type of accent.
Sorry, can you do that again one more time?
I will in a minute. So Mike said his fingerprints are in the system for whatever reason, and he's worried that the officer who is dating Susan is going to find his fingerprints on the screwdriver after he broke into Mrs. Fromm's house. The suspicious man tells Mike when his cover is blown, he has to disappear, but until then to keep doing what he's doing. Then we get Erin's quote of the week.
Oh, I didn't note down any quotes here. What could it be?
I can't believe that a guest star has stolen it for this episode for me. That's a sweet sound. Laughter like that, huh? Pisses me off. Also,
from like the kids playing in the background.
Also, that's not that man's accent.
It's really not. It's really not.
It's just how I hear it in my head. It's Tony from The Simpsons.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, he gives the same energy as the mafia Tony from The Simpsons.
Yes. So, and also he's showing some sociopathic tendencies. He's saying that the kid's laughter pisses him off, but then a child goes over to him and he is so smiley and friendly. I love it. It just, is it Mike's dad? Is it a stranger? Are they in a private detective agency with each other? Who knows?
I mean, I just wrote down that I'm going to be, for the time being, referring to him as Mike's boss in quotation marks, because clearly Mike answers to this man for whatever reason.
There is a cliche in television, which this feels like to me, which is, I was a cop and I had to hand in my badge but now I'm back for one more case and we're doing things that we shouldn't be doing. And like,
can you just do the rest of the pod in that accent?
No.
I think this is, for the viewer, is the biggest mystery in terms of having the least information, because we don't know what they're looking for. We don't know why. Is it connected to Mary Alice? Who knows?
We get to Susan's date with Officer Thompson. They are looking up people who went to high school with Susan in the police database to see if they've committed any crimes. And when I tell you, this is my ideal first date.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. Like, fuck the cinema. No one needs that. This is it. This is the date.
Yeah. This person was mean to me in high school. Can you see if they've ever got a DUI? Absolutely, this would win me over. Susan's come on to the stakeout and they're changing for the formal part of their date. Susan really needs to brush out her curls. We're going to ignore that. He gets changed fully topless.
In the middle of the street.
Sure. And Susan finds the screwdriver. The officer lied about it being sent to the lab. And then in the weirdest turn of events, he gets on his knees and begs. It's awful. He says, don't be such a girl about this. He calls her a drama queen. He calls her a psycho. I mean...
It's basically a montage of douchebag quotes.
Where are the ACAB people? Early in the episode, she is worried that Mike is Carl in disguise. And she sees that this man is actually more of a Carl in disguise. And I think it's a moment where she's noticed that she can see those red flags when it's important, when they're right in front of her face, when they're topless.
Yeah, I do maintain what I said earlier about not comparing people to your ex, but in this very specific situation, fair.
I think it's different to compare your ex than it is to compare your own patterns of what you're attracted to.
Yes. That's just growth.
So Susan runs into a sex worker in the street. And the sex worker lets Susan borrow her phone. And I'm bringing this up because I'm so excited about what you said earlier, because one of my outfits of the week was an accessory. And it was this sex worker's bedazzled rhinestone flip phone.
We have never been so in sync in our entire lives.
I know. Maybe we should do karaoke after this.
I also just love that Susan wants to be away from this man so badly that she will just walk home through a dodgy part of town in the middle of the night alone.
And naturally, she calls her 12-year-old daughter to fix it.
Julie, the vampire slayer, coming to the rescue.
To be fair, Julie is awake at night anyway because she's on patrol. And then there's a really cute bit where a man pulls up and she goes, "Oh, thank you. No, I'm on a break."
I wrote that quote down. That cracked me up so much.
It's really good.
Also, I feel like Susan is very pro-sex work. She was so just chill about these people on the street and the man who pulled up to her. She didn't freak out. And I just love that for her.
Yeah, I really liked it. And the woman was lovely. It wasn't creepy representation in mine.
Yeah.
It felt very, this is a woman who's working. And Susan was acknowledging that.
So someone comes to pick Susan up. And as we learn, or as we really should have assumed from Julie being the best wing woman who ever lived, she naturally got Mike to go and pick up Susan.
Julie's game is unmatched.
And Mike is much friendlier with Susan than before. And then sees that Susan still has the screwdriver, which takes away any of his worries about that. And then they get back to the lane, they pull over, park the car, and Susan and Mike basically reconcile. And Susan explains she's frustrated that she just likes him so much without really knowing anything about him. Them cue our rapid fire Q&A.
Where we learn nothing about him.
Truly nothing. Maybe his favorite color or something.
His favorite food is Mexican. He loves Elvis Costello, and his favorite sport is football. And what are we supposed to do with that? The only saving grace is he is looking very attractive in his leather jacket.
Oh, did it show off his arms? I didn't notice.
You were too busy looking at his teeth.
And then the final question in Susan's Q&A is, what does he think of her? And to answer that, Mike kisses her. And then we get a cute little quote of Susan saying, "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" I like that. That was nice.
It was very nice. It was, again, so high school.
But I will say I just really liked it because we've had a lot of episodes of Will They, Won't They? And
they have.
Yeah, they did. They gone did the thing.
The first kiss, though, the very first kiss, it is extremely awkward because his face goes in for the kiss and her eyes are open. And I have the biggest fear in my life about people who kiss with their eyes open.
And then we have our final scene.
Oh my God, what is with us today?
For our final scene, we get our Mary Alice voiceover coming back, talking about intruders and those who force their way into our lives. And then she says that the most troubling of all are the people who stand on the outside looking in, who we never truly get to know. And with that, we get a shot of Bree watching as Paul and Zach drive away somewhere, with more ominous music playing in the background.
And that is the end of episode 5. In this episode, just as we were talking about it, my outfit of the week is Bree's adorable, cute gardening outfit when the last scene is happening. And her little hat, and she's got a little apron on. I loved it.
Worst neighbor?
Worst neighbor is Zach.
Yeah.
It has to be Zach, but
I specifically wrote it because it is such a annoying, boring task to have to take down Christmas decorations. So don't be putting them up unnecessarily in my house.
Also, this is a personal thing. If you're decorating my house for Christmas, don't put up your own stockings. put up my stockings. What do you mean? I don't get a stocking in my own house?
Is this you inviting yourself over on Christmas Day? Because that's not going to fly.
That's not going to fly. And also, why are you inviting your dad? Let's talk about the husbands.
Let's talk about the husbands. I don't think any of the husbands were awful this week for like the first time. I know we're probably going to agree on this, but I think we've seen that regardless of the way he goes about it, that Carlos does clearly care for his wife one way or another. I think we saw Tom was willing to compromise eventually, and Rex was in the episode.
Yeah.
I mean, Rex didn't especially piss me off this episode, so as far as I'm concerned, that's a win.
Disagree. He got me. I think it was poignant that he said he has been eating hotel food all week, tried to get the sandwich, was rebuffed, and then said to Brie, you know what, let's have dinner together. He was using her for the meal. And also, I think that it was an emotional thing. He was emotionally manipulating her. I hate Rex so much. Do you know what?
I mean, so do I. Don't ever get that twisted.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to give you, episode 5, we've done a few now. I'm going to give you smash or pass based on personalities.
Purely based on personality.
Purely based on personality. Smash or pass, Tom or Rex.
Tom.
Smash or pass, Tom or Carlos.
Tom is my favorite husband. Tom's going to win every time here of what we've seen so far.
Smash or pass, Tom or Mike.
That one's harder. Probably Mike.
Smash or pass, Mike or Bob Fisk.
Bob Fisk.
And that's that.
But only if we can do it in the room that has taxidermy.
I like an audience.
I think as the show goes on, Carlos is probably going to creep up the tier list there for personality win, but yeah.
I can see Carlos getting more physically attractive to me as the episodes go on, and I don't think they've changed his styling that much, so it must be that he's getting more likable.
Yep.
But the hottest man of this episode for me, or the most physically...
Officer Thompson.
It's Officer Thompson.
Yeah. He kind of looks a bit like Carl now that I think about it.
He does look like Carl.
I've just thought of that now.
He's Carl in disguise.
He is Carl in disguise in so many ways. And we would smash both Carl and Officer Thompson.
But yes, very much love this episode.
So this has been episode 5, which for us marks the milestone which we said we would wait to reach before we start posting anything, which means we're gonna actually put this out there for you to hear, obviously, because you're listening now.
That's wild.
That's so exciting.
This started as a complete joke. And I think I'm going to put some of the screenshots up on our Instagram account. But essentially what happened was the actress who played Julie is now married and has married another character who we have not met yet. And I sent a picture of this to Jakub. And it spurred me saying, you know, I'm just waiting for your Desperate Housewives podcast to drop. And he said, well, I would need a co-host for that. And then it became a weird poking the bear at each other until eventually...
We're almost like a game of chicken. Yeah. And neither of us have backed off yet.
Yeah. It turned into, well, I have tech equipment. Well, I have 8 pages of notes. Well, I guess I'll see you on Sunday to record this podcast then. It's been a wild ride already, but it is. What's even wilder is people are going to be able to listen to this.
What's wilder is that you, listener, our Desperado, are on episode 5. You've listened to 5 episodes of us talking complete nonsense about this show. So thank you.
Thank you for undermining our contributions to the Desperate Housewives fandom, Jakub. No, thank you so much. We love you dearly, maybe. Don't know, never met you. And please stay with us for next week.
Yeah.
And don't forget to stay desperate.
Stay desperate. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out our Instagram for visuals, behind the scenes content, and more.
You can find us by searching for Modded, that's MEWDYD.
Or just search for Mary Alice, What Did You Do?
This podcast is brought to you entirely by us, Erin McGee
and Jakub Tanzi. If you're enjoying the show, don't forget to leave us a review. It really helps us out.
Join us next time for another episode of Mary Alice,
What Did You Do?